You all might be wondering why the hell I'm making an Etheria Restart video, and there's a dirty little secret I have to share. I actually like the game. Yes, I was sponsored by Etheria to make this video, but throughout my 7-day journey taking this game with the more casual, less sweaty approach compared to the game's biggest CCs, I've come to the realization that there's something incredibly satisfying about how this game's systems, design, and difficulty all blend together into a product that ultimately feels fulfilling, and I wanted to take the time to break down what those key characteristics are, especially as somebody who joined the game relatively late, more than a month into its launch. There are likely plenty of potential players out there like me, and if you're someone who might fit in my shoes and are finding yourself interested, make sure to check out my link in the description to give it a try yourself. One thing I prioritized throughout my Etheria Restart playthrough was a more casual approach to playing the game and engaging with its systems. Etheria blends a mixture of story-based progression with combat stages comprising of bosses, waves of smaller mobs, or a combination of both, with more player levels leading to more difficult, rewarding stages and further advancement into the story. Each of these stages costs stability, or the game's stamina, and grants experience towards the player's level, and with the ability to exchange Hydra Crystals, the game's premium currency used for gacha or other resources, for stability, I could have dramatically increased my progress. I didn't do that. Not a single time. Yes, the game has competitive PvP and time-gated progression that relies on constant activity to stay at the edge of competition, but it's also a gacha as well. Paying lets you progress faster, be stronger, and have more options to tackle content, but it also comes with another downside. You might end up playing too much and could easily start burning yourself out. By taking the game at a far more casual pace compared to those refreshing 10 times a day, granting them 1000 stability when stages only cost 10, I ended up progressing at a pace that was still meaningful, with around 1 to 3 hours of gameplay every day, even with the game's 3x speed and auto battle features. There's a lot of resources available for the player to level, gear, and upgrade their units, ranging from specific materials based on a unit's type to time-gated materials for skill advancement. One of my favorite features when it comes to progression is the shell system in the game, a companion system which builds on top of the game's gear system, comprised of a variety of different sets and stat bonuses that incrementally increase based on the number of pieces you have equipped. These shells come with built-in modifiers for gear sets, one layer of RNG, and unique upgrades as you ascend shells by consuming duplicate ones, for another. Combined with the game's existing RNG and its gear upgrade system, you're constantly encouraged to keep grinding towards bigger and better upgrades. And when you consider all the rarities for both shells and gear, you might think the grind is too much. I thought the same before I played it, and this take couldn't really be further from reality. That's because this game is actually difficult. You're heavily suggested to mix and match different units on your roster depending on the type of content you're facing, with some stages trivialized by having crowd control effects, while others are completely immune, encouraging you to invest horizontally across your roster and actually research what your units are capable of to clear the baseline content and advance through the story. You'll find yourself at roadblocks, read an enemy's mechanics, and realize that 1 or 2 of a character's 3 abilities can make your experience a lot easier, rewarding players for the knowledge that they've built up across their playthrough. It's not as simple as building 4 to 5 key units and using them to bulldoze through all the content in the game. The game's type system that causes certain types to deal more or less damage to others makes that clear, and that brings a level of satisfaction that I've missed in the gacha genre for years, and makes the game's wide roster at release and constant release of new characters make a lot more sense. However, this dependency on specific character mechanics to clear content might have you wondering about the game's pull income and overall roster progression. One of the core elements of a gacha game is that players who are much luckier or willing to pay more than others will have a big advantage when it comes to their team building and strategies. There are, without a doubt, top-tier units in Etheria Restart, specifically those with the light or constant type and dark or disorder type, since they don't interact as closely with the game's type weakness system and are more generally usable across content. But they aren't the end-all be-all when it comes to clearing stages. There are still an incredible number of competitive 4-star or SR options that work as meaningful substitutes in top teams, or in some cases, like with D-Ting, reign at the top all on their own. There are even 3-star or rare units that have found their way into meta relevance given just how difficult the content can actually become. Starting the game later has in a lot of ways been an advantage in my playthrough, as it's made many of my early investments a lot more targeted towards units that fit my playstyle, and I was able to select the SSR unit from the beginner banner that comes with the targeted selection much more confidently. The game's server system also allows for those who are joining the game late, like myself, to play alongside players who have similar playtime, helping mitigate that feeling of FOMO if you weren't there at release. And when it comes to other banners, I found the pull income through beginner missions, events, and monthly shops to be more than sufficient to hit pity multiple times across the game's non-LD banners, making it incredibly easy to acquire new releases like Nehor or Fukyu, or simply roll the dice on the standard banner to see if you can end up bagging one of those rare LD units, or one of the newest releases that's just entered the standard banner. From my experiences thus far over these 7 days, the progression here feels fair. And Etheria Restart, from the few new releases it's seen, doesn't appear to be dramatically power creeping every prior unit on the roster with each new addition. That's a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of other games in the genre, especially when you factor in just how much time and effort it takes to fully maximize a character's upgrades and potential. In regards to overall progression, Etheria comes equipped with one of the most comprehensive built-in beginner missions I've ever seen in a gacha. There are an insane number of tasks that all give incredibly valuable rewards for advancing your units that also guide you to where you should be spending your stability, or that time-constrained resource. It also lets you know what type of units you should be raising and the most meaningful way to strengthen your characters. They even have a special set of 7-day missions tailored for new players that directly gives them a copy of one of the strongest healers in the game, Ling Lo. Combine that with the fact that you're given a reasonably powerful SSR DPS, Leon, at the start of the game. Even if your luck on some of your early pulls wasn't the best, you still have most, if not all, of the tools you need to keep progressing throughout the game. When it comes to the casual new player experience, this game doesn't really feel lacking at all, even when you're approaching it entirely free to play like I am. Etheria has a heavy emphasis on grinding and building your characters, but that grinding is balanced by the fact that when you actually clear content in this game, you know you've earned it. And that's not something very typical in the gacha genre. The last point that I wanted to touch on is one of the game's biggest selling points, the PvP. I unlocked the earliest PvP mode relatively early on in my playthrough, fighting AI-controlled teams of other players, and with up to 5 daily challenges, I've been easily able to grind out the most important things like pulls and upgrade materials from the resetting shop. While I can't say much about the state of endgame PvP, early on it feels like a great addition that further rewards the effort you've put into building your characters, and by starting on a newer server like I did, you can ensure that you're facing more fair competition across your gameplay. Overall, I was initially hesitant to try out Etheria Restart due to the nature of PvP in a gacha game, but I found that underneath that initial hasty assumption lies an immensely satisfying game that checks off a lot of the boxes, especially if you're someone that's taking the same approach as me and engaging with the game in a more casual manner. If you've been putting this one off because you think you're starting too late or you don't want to play too sweaty, I heavily suggest you at least give it a try. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the amount of depth this title has. I'll personally be taking the game at my own pace for the foreseeable future. A big thank you to the Etheria Restart team for sponsoring this video. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.